stood in the docking bay of the Coalition command station and watched the human soldiers move around him. They were small, much smaller than he expected. The tallest human barely reached his chest and was not even considered large among his people. They were warriors. They had been engineered that way thousands of years ago. Their bodies were strong, their skin thick like armor, and their minds were clear of weakness. Fear did not exist in the genetic code. It had been removed, deleted, erased completely. This made them perfect soldiers. They fought without hesitation. They died without regret. This was the way. But now the Empire needed allies. The consuming swarm had arrived in their galaxy 3 cycles ago, and it ate everything. Entire planets were stripped of life. Whole star systems went dark. The swarm did not negotiate. It did not stop. It only consumed. So they had reached out to the humans. The humans were new to galactic politics. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Their technology was crude. Their ships were patched together with welds and prayers. But they had numbers, and the Coalition needed every ship it could get. A human approached. The man wore the uniform of a captain, with marks of rank on his shoulders. His face had scars, old ones that had healed white against his skin. His hair was black with streaks of gray at the temples. "Officer," the human said. His voice was steady. "Yes," replied. The translator implant in his skull converted his words into human language. "I'm Captain. I command the assault carrier Defiance. You've been assigned to my fleet." The human extended his hand, palm open. Knew this gesture. It was a human custom of greeting. He reached out and gripped the captain's hand. The human's grip was surprisingly firm, though was careful not to crush the fragile bones beneath the skin. "I have studied your military records," said. "Your tactics are unusual." "Unusual how?" asked. He did not seem offended. "You retreat, often the do not retreat." "Sometimes retreating is the move," said. "Come on, let me show you the ship." They walked through the corridors of the command station. Humans rushed past them carrying equipment and data tablets. Noticed how they moved. They were quick but not efficient. They bumped into each other. They apologized. They laughed. It was chaotic. "Your people seem undisciplined," observed. "They get the job done," said simply. They entered a briefing room where several officers were waiting. A young woman stood at attention when they entered. She was thin, with sharp eyes that analyzed everything. Her uniform was perfectly pressed. "This is Lieutenant Jin, my tactical officer," said. "Jin, this is officer from the Empire." "Sir," Jin said, nodding at. She did not offer her hand. Another woman stepped forward. She was older, with kind eyes and a medical insignia on her uniform. "I'm Hei, Chief Medical Officer. I'll need to run some scans on you, officer, just to make sure our medical equipment can treat physiology if needed." "Do not require medical treatment," said. "We heal quickly." "Humor me," Hay said with a small smile. The briefing began. A holographic display showed the front lines of the war. Red marked swarm territory. It had grown substantially in the last 3 months. Blue marked coalition space. The blue was shrinking. "Intelligence reports the swarm is gathering forces here," Jin said, pointing to a cluster of stars. "We believe they're preparing a major offensive." "Then we should strike first," said. "A preemptive attack with overwhelming force." "With what forces?" asked. "We're stretched thin across 12 systems. If we commit everything to one attack and fail, we lose everything." "The do not fail," said. "Everyone fails eventually," replied. His voice was not harsh, just matter of fact. "The trick is surviving your failures and learning from them." This concept was alien to. They were engineered for victory. Failure was not part of their design, but he had seen the casualty reports. Fleets were dying. Entire battle groups were being consumed by the swarm. Perhaps the human approach had merit, even if it seemed weak. The briefing continued for another hour. Jin outlined defensive strategies, discussed supply lines. Other officers reported on ship readiness and crew morale. That last word caught attention. "What is morale?" he asked. The room went quiet. The humans looked at each other. "It's how your soldiers feel," said carefully. "Whether they're confident, scared, angry, determined, it affects how well they fight." "Emotions are irrelevant to combat effectiveness," said. "Are they?" asked. He leaned back in his chair. "Tell me something. Do you feel anything when you fight?" "I feel nothing. That is the point." "And when a fellow dies beside you?" "I acknowledge the tactical loss. I continue fighting." Was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Fear isn't weakness, it's information. It tells you what matters. It tells you what you could lose." "Fear causes hesitation. Hesitation causes death," recited. It was a fundamental truth taught to every from hatching. "Maybe," said. "Or maybe fear makes you think before you throw your life away." Did not respond. This conversation was pointless. Humans clung to their emotions because they had not evolved beyond them. They had chosen a better path. After the briefing, Hay took to the medical bay. She ran her scanners over his body, taking notes on a data pad. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your redundant organ systems, the reinforced skeletal structure, the enhanced neural pathways. You're built like a living tank." "We are warriors," said. "We are made for war." "But what about before?" Hay asked. "Before the genetic engineering, what were your people like?" "We do not speak of the before time," said stiffly. "That was when we were weak." Hay looked at him with those kind eyes. "Maybe, or maybe you were just different." Later stood alone in his assigned quarters. They were small by standards but functional. Through the viewport, he could see the human fleet assembling. Dozens of ships, each one different from the others. Some were military vessels, sleek and armed. Others were converted cargo haulers with weapons bolted onto their hulls. Some were so old they still used fusion engines instead of quantum drives. It was a mess, a chaotic, undisciplined mess. But it was all they had. Thought about Captain's words. Fear is information. It tells you what matters. They had no fear. They had no attachments. Each warrior was replaceable, interchangeable. When one died, another took their place. There was efficiency in this. There was purity. But as watched a small human maintenance crew working on a damaged fighter, laughing as they welded a new panel into place, he wondered something he had never wondered before. What did it feel like to care whether you lived or died? The thought disturbed him, so he pushed it away and began reviewing tactical data for the upcoming deployment. That was what warriors did. They prepared, they fought, they won or they died. Emotions were irrelevant. At least, that's what it always believed. The alarm woke from his meditation cycle. Red lights flashed through his quarters. The ship's speakers crackled to life with Captain's voice. "All hands to battle stations. The swarm has been detected at threshold 7. This is not a drill." Was in the corridor within seconds. Around him, human crew members ran to their positions. He noticed their faces. Some were calm, others were pale. One young engineer's hands shook as he sealed his pressure suit. "First time," an older human asked the young one. "Yeah," the engineer admitted. "You'll be fine, stay focused. Do your job, we'll get through this." Found this exchange curious. They did not reassure each other. There was no need. But he had no time to analyze it further. He needed to reach the bridge. When he arrived, the bridge was already buzzing with activity. Display screens showed tactical data. The swarm fleet was massive, at least 40 vessels of various sizes. The coalition fleet had only 23 ships. Status, commanded from the captain's chair. "Swarm vessels are holding position at the edge of the mining colony," Jin reported. Her voice was steady, but noticed her fingers dancing across her console faster than necessary. "They're between us and the evacuation transports." The civilians asked. "Still loading. They need 15 more minutes." We don't have 15 minutes, another officer said. His jaw tightened. Then we make 15 minutes. All ships, defensive formation Delta 7. We hold the line until those transports are clear. Stepped forward. Captain, respectfully, defensive formations are inefficient. We should attack immediately with maximum force. And leave the transports undefended, said. Those are 5,000 civilians. 5,000 civilians are acceptable losses to destroy 40 swarm vessels, stated. It was simple mathematics. The bridge went very quiet, saw several humans staring at him. The expression hardened. No one is acceptable losses on my watch, the captain said coldly. Take your station, officer. Move to the auxiliary tactical position. He did not understand the human's reaction. He had merely stated the logical choice. Emotions were clouding their judgment. The swarm fleet began to advance. On the screens, the enemy ships moved like a swarm of insects, coordinated and relentless. They had no individual pilots, no separate minds. The entire fleet was one organism with one goal: consume. Incoming fire, someone shouted. The Defiance shuddered as energy beams struck her shields. Return fire lit up the darkness of space. The battle had begun. A fighter pilot's voice crackled over the comm. This is Gold Leader, taking my squadron in. Recognized the voice. It was Wu, one of the human pilots he had been introduced to during the tour. The man had seemed arrogant, always smiling, always joking. Gold Leader, your approach vector is too aggressive, Jin called out. Pull back 30 degrees. Negative control, I see an opening. Watch the tactical display. Wu's squadron was diving straight into the swarm formation. It was bold. It was also tactically sound. The swarm's heavy vessels couldn't target fighters effectively at close range. But then saw something else. A swarm interceptor wing was moving to flank the human fighters. Wu hadn't seen them. He would be caught in a crossfire. Gold Leader, break off. Jin's voice was sharp. Interceptors at Mark 37. I see them. Wu's voice was different now. Higher pitched, faster, braking. The human pilot threw his fighter into a wild spin. His squadron scattered. The swarm interceptors pursued. Watched as Wu's fighter dodged and weaved through enemy fire. The pilot was afraid. Could hear it in his breathing over the comm, rapid and harsh. But fear was making Wu unpredictable. The swarm's targeting systems couldn't anticipate his erratic movements. A pilot would have followed proper evasion protocols, which the swarm had undoubtedly analyzed and countered. Wu's fear-driven chaos was keeping him alive. Gold 3 is hit, another pilot called out. He's venting atmosphere. Saw me, can you get a repair drone out there? Called to engineering. Already on it, Captain, a woman's voice responded. Drone launched, give me 2 minutes. Saw me was the engineering officer, had noted her efficiency during the ship tour, but now he heard something in her voice he hadn't heard before. Stress. Worry. She was afraid the repair drone wouldn't reach the damaged fighter in time. 2 minutes passed. The battle raged on. The Defiance rocked from multiple impacts. Shields were down to 70%, 60, 50. Drone has reached Gold 3, Saw Me reported. Sealing the breach now. Gold 3 here, the damaged pilot's voice came through. Patches holding, I'm still in this fight. Processed what he had observed. Saw Me's fear had made her act quickly, without waiting for orders. Her emotional investment in the pilot's survival had driven her efficiency. This was contrary to everything understood about fear. Swarm formation breaking, Jin announced. They're trying to flank us. All ships adjust to compensate, ordered. Watched Jin work. Her hands moved across her console with precise speed. She was calculating firing solutions for 6 different ships simultaneously, but could see the slight tremor in her fingers. She was afraid, yet her calculations were flawless. He checked them twice, not a single error. How was this possible? Fear should impair cognitive function. They had removed it specifically because it degraded combat performance. Yet Jin was performing at peak efficiency while experiencing this emotion. "Captain, the evacuation transports are away," another officer reported. "All civilians are clear." "Good," said. "Now we can get serious. All ships switch to offensive formation Omega-3, target their command vessel." The coalition fleet surged forward. What had been a defensive wall became a spear, driving into the heart of the swarm formation. The battle cruisers were at the tip of that spear, their heavy weapons tearing through swarm vessels. Felt something he had never felt before, a satisfaction that went beyond tactical success. The humans had protected their civilians and were now counterattacking. There was elegance in this approach, even if it was inefficient. "Multiple breaches on Deck 7, someone shouted. "Swarm boarding pods." "Security teams responding," said calmly. "Stood, I will assist." He didn't wait for permission. He ran through the corridors toward Deck 7. His body was designed for combat. He was faster and stronger than any human. He would end this threat quickly. When he reached Deck 7, he found Hay, the medical officer, setting up a field hospital in the corridor. She was preparing equipment with quick, efficient movements, but saw the fear in her eyes. The corridor ahead echoed with weapons fire and alien shrieks. "You should evacuate," told her. "And go where?" Hay said. "People are going to get hurt. They'll need medical attention. I'm staying." "You are afraid," observed. "Terrified," Hay admitted. "But fear isn't a good reason not to do your job." She went back to her preparations, moved past her toward the sound of combat. The swarm creatures were hideous things, all claws and teeth and chitin. They moved on 6 legs, fast and vicious. Human security personnel were holding a defensive line, firing plasma weapons as they slowly retreated. Charged forward, his armored body smashed into the first swarm creature, sending it flying into a bulkhead. His claws tore through the exoskeleton of another. The creatures turned on him, recognizing a threat. But they had made a mistake. By focusing on, they exposed their flanks to the human soldiers. Plasma fire ripped through the swarm creatures from multiple angles. Within moments, the corridor was clear. A human sergeant approached. The man was breathing hard, his armor scorched. "Thanks for the assist." "You fought well despite your fear," said. The sergeant laughed, a harsh sound. "Who says I was afraid?" "Your elevated heart rate, increased respiration, dilated pupils," listed. "All indicators of fear response." "Yeah, okay, I was scared shitless," the sergeant admitted. "But you still fight, that's the deal." On the bridge, the battle was reaching its climax. The swarm command vessel was taking heavy damage. Suddenly, it began to retreat. The rest of the swarm fleet followed. "They're withdrawing," Jin announced, heard relief in her voice. "Let them go," ordered. "Focus on rescue and recovery." The crew cheered. It was a strange sound to ears. They did not celebrate victories. They simply prepared for the next battle. But the humans embraced each other, laughed, and some even cried. Returned to the bridge, saw him and nodded. "Good work down there." "Captain, I do not understand," said. "Your crew is afraid. I observed it throughout the battle, yet they performed excellently. How is this possible?" Considered the question. Maybe fear doesn't stop you from doing your job. Maybe it reminds you why the job matters. Had no response to this. He returned to his station and reviewed the battle data. Every human he had observed had shown signs of fear, yet all had performed their duties without hesitation. The way was to eliminate fear. The human way was to embrace it and fight anyway. Did not know which path was correct, but for the first time in his life, he questioned whether his people had chosen the only path. The mission briefing was classified. Only 6 people attended: Captain, Lieutenant Jin, 2 human special forces operatives, a communications specialist, and Jin activated the holographic display. Intelligence has identified a critical swarm staging area deep in enemy territory. If we can plant quantum tracking beacons at these 3 locations, we'll be able to predict their next major offensive. That's at least 4 jumps into swarm space, one of the operatives said. He was a lean man named Sung, with scars on his hands and a quiet way of speaking. We'll be completely cut off from support. Correct, said. This is volunteer only. If anyone wants to back out, now's the time. No one moved. Good, continued. We'll use a stealth shuttle, in and out, fast and quiet. The other operative was a woman named Bona. She specialized in communications and electronic warfare. She studied the map carefully. If they detect us at any of these points, we're dead. They'll swarm us before we can jump out. Then we don't get detected, Sung said simply. Found these humans interesting. They knew the risks. They understood they might die, yet they volunteered anyway. They would do the same, but without the emotional weight these humans carried. They were afraid, but they came anyway. The mission launched 6 hours later. The stealth shuttle was small and cramped, had to duck to fit through the doorways. The ship systems were surprisingly advanced, designed to scatter sensor sweeps and mask their energy signature. Bona sat at the communications station, her fingers dancing across multiple screens. She was humming something under her breath, a nervous habit. Sung piloted the shuttle with steady hands, but noticed the man checking his weapons 3 times before they even reached the first jump point. First jump in 30 seconds, Sung announced. The shuttle dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a dead star system. Swarm vessels patrolled in the distance, dark shapes against the void. Bona immediately went to work, analyzing their patrol patterns. We have a window, she said. 7 minutes to reach the beacon site. They moved in silence, the shuttle drifting on minimal power. Watched the swarm ships pass, close enough that he could see the organic plating on their hulls. They looked like they had been grown rather than built. Sung landed the shuttle on a small asteroid. He suited up and exited the airlock. The beacon needed to be placed on the asteroid's surface, hidden among the rocks but with a clear line of sight to the swarm staging area. There, Sung pointed to a crater. That spot should work. They made their way across the asteroid's surface in the low gravity. Sung moved carefully, checking his footing with each step. Could move faster, but he matched the human's pace. Why do you do this? Asked over the suit's comm. Do what? This mission. You know you could die. I see your vital signs. You are afraid, yet you volunteered. Sung was quiet for a moment. They reached the crater and he began setting up the beacon. You're right. I'm scared shitless. I've been scared since we launched. Then why come? Because someone has to, Sung said. If we don't plant these beacons, thousands of people might die in the swarm's next attack. Maybe millions. My fear doesn't change that math. The do not experience fear, said. We removed it from our genetics. It makes us better warriors. Sung looked at him through his helmet visor. Does it? Or does it just make it easier to throw your lives away? The question bothered, but he had no time to consider it. The beacon was placed. They returned to the shuttle and jumped to the second location. The second site was more dangerous. It was inside a debris field that swarm ships used as a hunting ground. The shuttle had to navigate through twisted metal and broken ships, the graveyards of a dozen species the swarm had consumed. This place gives me the creeps, Bona muttered. Stay focused, Sung said, but his voice was tight. They found a suitable location inside a destroyed battleship. The hull was breached in dozens of places, creating a maze of corridors and compartments. Sung entered the wreck to place the second beacon. Inside, emergency lighting still flickered in some sections, powered by failing backup systems. The ship was alien, not human or something else, something that was now extinct. Second beacon placement 2 decks down, Sung said, checking his scanner. They moved through the corridors, noticed Sung's breathing had increased. The human was more than afraid now. He was on the edge of panic. "Are you functional?" asked. "Yeah," Sung said. "Just this ship, these people, they all died here. The swarm killed every single one of them." "Death is inevitable," stated. "Maybe, but this," Sung gestured at the destruction around them. "This was slaughter, this was extermination." They reached the beacon site. Sung's hands shook as he set up the device, observed this with curiosity. The fear was affecting the human's fine motor control. Yet Sung worked through it, making adjustments until the beacon was properly calibrated. Then the scanner's hand blinked red. "Movement," he said. "Multiple contacts coming our way." "Swarm?" Sung asked. "Yes." They ran. The corridors blurred past them. Behind them, heard the clicking of claws on metal. The swarm creatures were fast, scuttling through the wreckage like the predators they were. "Bona, we need extraction now," Sung shouted into his comm. "I'm bringing the shuttle around," Bona responded. 30 seconds. They didn't have 30 seconds. Could hear the creatures getting closer. He turned to face them. "Go, I will hold them." "Like hell," Sung said. He pulled out a plasma pistol. "We leave together or not at all." The first swarm creature rounded the corner, charged it, his armored body colliding with its mass. They tumbled through a breach in the hull, out into the vacuum. The creature's claws raked across suit, but the reinforced material held. More creatures poured through the corridor. Sung fired his pistol, each shot precise despite his shaking hands. His fear wasn't making him freeze. It was making him focus. "This way," Sung shouted. He had spotted a different path, a shortcut through a collapsed section of the ship. They scrambled through the gap. The creatures followed, but the tight space slowed them down, and Sung emerged onto the ship's exterior hull just as the shuttle swooped in. Bona had positioned the shuttle's airlock directly in their path. "Move, move, move." They dove through the airlock. The shuttle accelerated away as swarm creatures scrabbled at its hull. Bona activated a pulse that sent electromagnetic energy through the shuttle's exterior. The creatures fell away, twitching. "Jump in 5, 4, 3. Sung counted down from the pilot's seat. The shuttle jumped. They were safe. For a moment no one spoke. Then Sung started laughing. It was a wild, slightly hysterical sound. "We made it. Holy hell, we actually made it." Bona was crying and laughing at the same time. "I thought we were dead. I thought we were all dead." Did not understand these reactions. They had completed the mission. They had survived. Why express such extreme emotions? But then something happened that did not expect. Something impossible. His primary heart skipped a beat. Not a normal rhythm variation. An actual skip, a moment where it stopped and then restarted. His secondary heart compensated immediately, but the sensation was unmistakable. Checked his vital signs on his suit's internal display. His body temperature had spiked. His adrenaline levels were elevated. His breathing rate was higher than normal. These were fear responses, but that was impossible. They did not feel fear. "You okay, big guy?" Sung asked. He had noticed stillness. "Yes," said, but he wasn't certain that was true. They completed the third beacon placement without incident. The return journey was quiet. Sat in the cargo section, reviewing his biometric data. The anomaly in his heart function bothered him. It was inefficient. It was wrong. When they docked with the Defiance, Captain was waiting. "Mission successful." "All 3 beacons are active," Sung reported. "We had some close calls, but we got it done." "Looked at, you look troubled." "I am experiencing a physiological malfunction," admitted. "My primary heart exhibited irregular rhythm during the mission." "We should get you to medical," said. "It is not necessary. The issue has resolved itself." But it hadn't. Because when thought about those swarm creatures chasing them through the dead ship, when he remembered the sound of their claws on metal, his heart rate increased again. He was feeling something that shouldn't exist in his genetic code. That night, alone in his quarters, reviewed the mission data. He watched the recordings from his suit camera. He saw himself fighting the swarm creatures. He saw Sung, terrified but determined, making the decision that saved their lives. The human had been afraid. The human had used that fear to think creatively, to find a solution that's tactical programming had missed. And had felt something when death seemed certain, not the calm acceptance they were designed for, something else, something primal. He did not know what to call it, but deep in his genetic memory, in the parts of him that had existed before the engineering, before the modifications, something ancient whispered a word. Fear. Tried to ignore the problem. For 3 days he performed his duties as normal. He reviewed tactical data. He trained with the units. He attended briefings, but the anomaly persisted. His heart skipped beats when he reviewed combat footage. His skin temperature spiked when he thought about the swarm. His hands, which had always been steady, sometimes trembled slightly when no one was watching. It was unacceptable. It was a malfunction that needed to be corrected. On the 4th day, went to the medical bay. Hay greeted him with a smile. "Officer, what brings you here?" "I require a medical evaluation. I am experiencing physiological irregularities." "Come with me." She led him to an examination room. A younger woman was already there, setting up equipment. She had sharp, intelligent eyes and wore a white medical coat over her uniform. "This is Dr. Hay said. She specializes in non-human physiology." Doctor looked up with obvious interest. "A patient. This is a first for me. Please sit, or stand if that's more comfortable. Tell me about these irregularities." Explain the symptoms. The heart rhythm changes, the elevated stress responses, the tremors. Doctor listened carefully, taking notes on her data pad. "When did this start?" she asked. "After the reconnaissance mission into swarm territory." "The one where you almost got killed by swarm hunters?" Hay asked. "Yes." Doctor and Hay exchanged a look. "I'd like to run some scans," Doctor said. "Deep neurological and genetic analysis. Is that acceptable?" "Yes." The scans took 2 hours. Lay still while machines hummed around him, mapping every aspect of his biology. Doctor studied the results with increasing fascination. "This is remarkable," she murmured. "Absolutely remarkable." "Have you identified the malfunction?" asked. "It's not a malfunction," Doctor said slowly. She brought up a holographic display of his brain. "Look at this. These neural pathways here in your amygdala and prefrontal cortex. They're active." "Should they not be active?" "Not in a no. These are the pathways responsible for processing fear responses. According to medical literature, they were genetically suppressed thousands of years ago." She zoomed in on specific areas. "But they're not deleted. They're dormant, and something has triggered them to wake up." Stared at the display. "That is impossible. Fear was removed from genetics." "It was suppressed, not removed," Doctor corrected gently. "There's a difference. The genetic code is still there, just turned off, like a switch in the off position." "Then something has flipped the switch," Hay said. "Exactly." Doctor pulled up more data. "And I think I know what did it. Mirror neurons. Have you heard of them?" "Had not." "They're neurons that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing the same action," Doctor explained. "They're the basis of empathy. When you see someone in pain, your mirror neurons simulate that pain in your own brain. It helps you understand what others are feeling." "They do not require empathy," said. "Maybe not," Doctor said, "but you have the neural structures for it. And you've been spending weeks surrounded by humans who feel fear constantly. Your mirror neurons have been observing human fear responses this entire time. And slowly, gradually, they've been reactivating those dormant pathways in your own brain. Process this information. You are saying that human emotions are contagious." "In a way, yes. especially for species with mirror neuron systems. Doctor sat down across from him. Officer, you're not malfunctioning. You're experiencing fear, probably for the first time in your life. The words hung in the air, wanted to deny them, but his biometric data didn't lie. The scans didn't lie. He was feeling fear. This is a disease, said. Among my people, this would be considered genetic contamination. Or, Hay said softly, it could be considered becoming more complete. Stood abruptly, he needed to think, he needed to process. He left the medical bay without another word. He wandered the ship's corridors for hours. He observed the human crew. A maintenance team joked as they repaired a damaged conduit. Two officers played chess in the rec room. A young enlisted woman read a book in a quiet corner, completely absorbed in the story. These humans felt everything. Joy, sadness, fear, anger, love. They carried all these emotions and still functioned, still fought, still survived. They had eliminated emotions to become perfect warriors. But were they perfect? Or had they just eliminated the parts of themselves that made them more than weapons? Found himself outside Captain's quarters. He pressed the door chime. "Come in's voice called. The captain's quarters were small and surprisingly personal. There were photographs on the walls, images of a younger with other humans, smiling, embracing. One photo showed him with a woman and a small child. "My family," said, noticing his gaze. "My wife and daughter, they're back on Earth." "You left them to fight this war." "Yes." His expression was complex, pain and love and determination all mixed together. "You are afraid you will not see them again," observed. "Terrified," admitted, "every single day." "Yet you still fight." "Because of them, because I want them to have a future," gestured for to sit. "What's on your mind?" Sat, the chair creaked under his weight. "Doctor informed me that I am experiencing fear. The dormant genetic code in my brain has been reactivated through exposure to humans." "And that bothers you?" "It is considered a genetic disease among my people. Who experiences fear is defective. They are removed from military service. Sometimes they are removed permanently." His eyes widened. "That's barbaric." "It is efficient. Fear causes hesitation. Hesitation causes death." Or said, "Fear causes caution. Caution causes survival." He leaned forward. "Let me tell you a story. 20 years ago, I was a young lieutenant, fresh out of the academy, full of confidence and tactical knowledge. I got assigned to my first combat mission. What happened? We got ambushed. Nothing like the swarm, just pirates, but they were good, well-armed, well-coordinated. My squad got pinned down and I froze. I was so scared I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything." "How did you survive?" "My sergeant dragged me to cover, screamed at me until I snapped out of it. We won that fight, but barely. And afterward, I seriously considered quitting. I thought fear had proven I wasn't cut out to be a soldier." "But you did not quit." "No, because my sergeant told me something I've never forgot. He said, 'Fear doesn't make you a coward. Running away makes you a coward. Feeling afraid and doing your duty anyway, that's what makes you brave.'" Stood and walked to his window, looking out at the stars. "The removed fear because you thought it made you weak, but you also removed something else. The choice. A fight's because they're programmed to fight. They can't do anything else. But a human who's afraid and fights anyway, that's a choice. That's courage." "I do not feel courageous," said. "I feel disrupted, uncertain." "Welcome to being alive," said with a slight smile. "That's what emotions do. They're messy and complicated and sometimes they hurt, but they also connect us to each other. They remind us what we're fighting for. The fight for the empire." "Do you?" asked. "Or do you fight because it's all you know how to do?" Had no answer. An alarm interrupted them. It was the priority alert, the one reserved for critical threats. Both of them ran to the bridge. Jin was already at her station. "Captain, we're receiving reports from multiple sectors. The swarm has launched a massive offensive, dozens of fleets, all converging on coalition core worlds. The tracking beacons said, "Did they give us any warning?" They did, but not enough. The swarm is moving faster than we predicted. They'll reach the inner colonies in 48 hours. The bridge crew looked at each other. Fear was palpable in the air. This was the moment they had all dreaded, the swarm's final push. "All hands to battle stations," ordered. His voice was calm but could see the fear in his eyes. "Recall all ships. We're making our stand at Bright Gate." Felt his heart rate increase, not from exertion, from fear, real, undeniable fear. The swarm was coming. Many would die, maybe all of them. But as he looked around the bridge, at the humans preparing for battle despite their fear, understood something fundamental. They had engineered themselves to feel nothing so they could face death without hesitation. But the humans felt everything and faced death anyway. And in that choice, in that defiance, they found something they had lost. They found meaning. Bright Gate was not a gate at all. It was a between two massive nebulae, the only clear path to the Coalition's core worlds. Every ship that could fly had been gathered there. Human vessels, battle cruisers, ships from a dozen other species. It was the largest fleet the Coalition had ever assembled. It would not be enough. Stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the tactical display. The swarm fleet was 3 times their size, maybe 4 times. The numbers kept growing as more swarm vessels arrived. "They're not even trying to hide their strength," Jin said quietly. Her hands rested on her console, but they were shaking. She didn't bother to hide it anymore. Captain studied the display with calm eyes, but could see the fear beneath the calm. The captain's jaw was tight. His breathing was controlled, deliberately slowed. He was afraid, but he was functioning, leading. "All ships report ready," Jin said. "Good," activated the fleet-wide comm channel. "All vessels, this is Captain of the Defiance. I'm not going to lie to you. The odds are against us. We're outnumbered. And if we fail here, the swarm will consume everything we love." Listened. Human commanders usually gave inspiring speeches before battle, but wasn't trying to inspire. He was being honest. "I'm scared," continued. "I think we all are, and that's okay. Fear means we understand what's at stake. It means we have something worth fighting for. So yes, be afraid, but don't let fear stop you. Let it remind you why we're here. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it fuel your determination." He paused. "In a few minutes, we're going to show the swarm something they've never encountered before. We're going to show them beings who are afraid and fight anyway. We're going to show them courage. All ships, prepare for combat, and good luck to us all." The comm channel closed. The bridge was silent. "Nice speech," said. "Thanks," replied. "Think it'll make a difference?" "No, but it was honest. That matters." The swarm fleet advanced. On the mass of organic ships looked like a plague, a spreading infection in the darkness of space. They moved with horrible coordination, every vessel part of one vast mind. "Here they come," someone whispered. "All ships fire at will," ordered. Space erupted in violence. Energy beams and missiles filled the void. The swarm ships fired back with biological weapons, projectiles that burst on impact and spread acid across hull plating. The first ships on both sides died within seconds. Monitored the tactical situation. The coalition fleet was fighting well, but they were being pushed back. The swarm's numerical advantage was too great. "Wu's squadron is taking heavy casualties," Jin reported. Her voice cracked slightly. "Tell him to fall back to defensive position Beta," ordered. "He's not responding. His comm is, 'Wait, Gold 5 is down, Gold 7 is down.'" Jin's hands flew across her console. "The squadron is scattered." Pulled up the fighter telemetry. Wu's fighter was still active but heavily damaged. The pilot was trying to regroup his remaining fighters, but swarm interceptors were hunting them. "I will assist," said. He turned to leave the bridge. "Where are you going?" called after him. "To the fighter bay." "You're not a pilot." "I am. I can fly anything." He ran through the corridors. The ship shook from impacts. Crew members ran past him, some to repair stations, some to weapons control. Everyone was afraid. Everyone moved anyway. In the fighter bay, squeezed himself into a human fighter. It was not designed for someone his size, but he made it work. The bay doors opened and he launched into the chaos of battle. Space combat was different from ground combat. Everything moved in 3 dimensions. There was no cover, no terrain, just ships and weapons and death. Found Wu's fighter quickly. The human pilot was flying erratically, trying to shake 3 swarm interceptors. His ship was venting atmosphere from a dozen breaches. "Wu, I am on your 6. What the hell are you doing out here?" "Helping." Targeted the nearest swarm interceptor and fired. His shot was precise, as it always was. The interceptor exploded, but the other 2 were already adjusting, coming at him from different angles. Fear hit like a physical blow. His heart pounded. His hands trembled on the controls. Every instinct screamed at him to flee, to find safety. He was going to die out here. He was going to burn up in this fragile ship, and Wu needed help. Took a breath. He didn't push the fear away. He let it in. Let it show him what mattered. Wu mattered. The pilot with the jokes and the smile and the family back home. That mattered. He flew. The battle became a blur. Let his fear sharpen his reflexes, make him unpredictable. He flew like a human, not like a erratic, creative, desperate. And it worked. "Form up on me," Wu called to his surviving squadron. "We're going back in." Back on the Defiance, the situation was deteriorating. The swarm was pressing hard on all flanks. Ships were dying. The line was collapsing. "Captain, command is requesting we commit all reserves," Jin reported. Said, "We commit everything now. We have nothing left for the final push." "Sir, they're insisting." An explosion rocked the ship. Alarms shrieked. "Engineering report," called. Salmi's voice came through, stressed and urgent. "Main reactor is fluctuating. I can stabilize it, but I need 5 minutes." "You have 3. Another impact, this one worse. The lights flickered. Jin's console sparked and she screamed. The explosion threw her backward. Her uniform was burning. Hay was there instantly, medical kit in hand. She extinguished the flames and began treating the burns. Jin was conscious but in pain. "I'm okay," Jin gasped. "I can still work." "You need medical treatment," Hay said. Later, Jin dragged herself back to her console with Hay's help. Her hands were burned, but she worked anyway. "Captain, the flagship is taking critical damage. Admirals requesting emergency evacuation." His expression darkened. The flagship was the fleet's command center. If it fell, coordination would collapse. "Tell the Admiral we're sending shuttles." "Sir, we don't have any available. They're all deployed on rescue operations." "Then I'll go get him myself." Stood. "Jin, you have command." "Captain." "That's in order." Ran for the shuttle bay. Returning from his fighter mission, saw him and followed. "Where are you going?" demanded. "The flagship is dying. The Admiral needs extraction." "I will come with you." They took a damaged shuttle, one that had barely made it back from a previous mission. The shields were weak. The hull was scored with acid burns, but it flew. The flagship was a battle cruiser, massive and imposing even as it died. Fire vented from its wounds. Its weapons were still firing, but weakly. Brought the shuttle in close, matching the cruiser's tumbling motion. "There's the Admiral's escape pod bay," said. They docked. The airlock opened to reveal chaos. Warriors were evacuating in ordered lines, but there weren't enough escape pods. Many would die. The Admiral was a massive, covered in scars from 100 battles. He saw and nodded. "You are the one who serves with humans." "Yes, Admiral." "Does it shame you?" thought about the question, about fear for his family, about Wu flying with burned hands, about Jin working through pain, about Saul Me in engineering, keeping the reactor stable through sheer determination. No, said, it teaches me. Teaches you what? What it means to choose courage instead of having it programmed. The Admiral studied him, then surprisingly he smiled. Perhaps there is hope for us yet. Go, I will manually detonate the core. It will take many swarm ships with it. Admiral, that is an order. Evacuate the survivors. I will buy you time. Grab's arm, we have to go now. They loaded as many warriors as the shuttle could hold, more than it was rated for. The shuttle groaned under the weight, but it lifted off. Behind them, the flagship's weapons fired one last furious salvo, then it dove into the swarm formation. The explosion was like a new sun being born. The Admiral had overloaded the quantum core. The blast consumed dozens of swarm vessels. But more kept coming. Looked at the tactical display in the shuttle. The coalition was losing. In minutes, the line would break completely. Then he saw something, a pattern in the swarm's movements. They were coordinated, yes, but that coordination was also predictable. They had never fought an enemy that retreated strategically. They had only fought enemies that fought to the death. Captain said, I have an idea, but it requires the entire fleet to do something we have never done. What? Retreat. Stared at him, explain. The swarm adapts to its enemies, but it has never seen retreat. If our fleet falls back, appears to break, the swarm will assume victory. They will overextend, pursuing us into this area. Highlighted a section of space between the nebulae, where the human and allied fleets will be waiting in ambush. A feigned retreat, said. The swarm won't expect it because they never retreat. Exactly, but the command will never approve. To them, retreat is death, it is failure. Then we don't ask permission. They returned to the Defiance, immediately sent the tactical plan to all fleet commanders. Most of the humans agreed instantly. The other species were hesitant but willing. The refused. Until sent a message on the command frequency. All vessels, this is officer. I have served alongside humans for 3 months. I have seen them feel fear and fight anyway. I have felt fear myself and learned it is not weakness. It is information. The Admiral taught me that a warrior who cannot adapt is already dead. I am adapting now. I ask you to do the same, for the survival of all our peoples. For a long moment there was silence. Then one by one vessels confirmed. They would retreat. They would follow the plan. The feigned retreat began. The fleet broke formation and fell back. To the swarm, it must have looked like victory. Their entire fleet surged forward, pursuing the fleeing into the designated kill zone. Now ordered. The human and allied fleets dropped their stealth fields and opened fire from 3 sides. The swarm fleet, compressed into the narrow space between nebulae, had nowhere to go, nowhere to maneuver. It was a slaughter. When it was over, the swarm fleet was destroyed. Not all of it, but enough. The survivors fled. The coalition had won. The Defiance's bridge erupted in cheers. Jin was crying and laughing. Saul Me came up from engineering and hugged everyone she could reach. Even the normally stoic warriors allowed themselves small expressions of satisfaction. Stood quietly feeling his heart's beat, both of them strong and steady. He had been afraid, terrified, and he had fought anyway. Later, much later, after the casualties had been counted and the repairs had begun, sat in his quarters and composed his report to the high command. He wrote about fear, about how it had awakened in him, about how the humans had taught him that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. He wrote, I felt fear for the first time as I warred alongside humanity, and in that fear I finally understood what it means to be truly brave. The removed fear to become perfect warriors, but perfection is not the same as completion. We are warriors, yes, but we could be more. We could be complete. He requested permanent assignment to human fleets. He suspected the request would be. He might be considered defective, contaminated. But as he looked out at the stars, at the human ships flying in formation with cruisers, he realized he didn't care. He had found something worth being afraid of losing. He had found belonging.